Hello, Internet. This is Jim Baker. My first time doing YouTube Live. It's very interesting. I wanted to just talk a little bit about. I have some Brazilian clients, a lot of pre-immigration clients for who are Brazilian, and I want to talk a little bit about what you need to be aware of if you're a Brazilian person and you're immigrating to the United States. So, the tax system in Brazil is different from how it is in the U.S., and there's a couple big differences. I guess before I get into the tax systems, when you immigrate to the U.S., you have to pay tax on your worldwide income, and you have to, assuming you're a tax resident, you have to pay tax on your worldwide income, and you have to report all of your holdings and businesses from all over the any country outside of the United States. And there's a lot of different criteria, but I have many clients who are immigrating here on EB-2 visas who are business owners and who operate businesses in Brazil. And basically in Brazil, if you make a million real, then the business pays tax, and all the difference is distributed as a dividend to the shareholder, and the dividends tax-free in Brazil. But it's treated differently in the United States. In the United States, dividends are taxed. And when a U.S. person is receiving a dividend from a private company in Brazil, the dividend is taxed at ordinary income tax rates, and there's no withholding taxes on that income. So there's a different planning, and there's different things we need to do before you immigrate so that we can mitigate the tax impact of your move. And there's a lot of different strategies depending on the type of company, what you're doing, where you're, how long you're going to be in the U.S. There's just a lot of strategies to go over, a lot of different stuff. But I have a lot of clients get in trouble when they come here and they just immigrate and they move and they live in the U.S. and have to file their taxes, and they've been receiving $1 million a year in dividends in Brazil, and the dividends aren't taxable in Brazil, but they're taxable in the United States when they get here. So that's like one of the biggest things, one of the biggest issues. Another issue is that many of my clients invest basically in their banks. So if you use Banco Itaú or Banco Bradesco, and it's just a regular bank, you have an investment account with the bank, all of my clients refer to the bank investments as fondos, as funds. But if you're investing generally with the bank, how I've understood working with my Brazilian attorneys is that they're not really funds from a U.S. perspective. A fund in a U.S. perspective is when you're investing in a corporation or a company that has many other investments. But basically how you're investing in the banks in Brazil, again, from my understanding, is that the bank, you're investing in the bank, and the bank is just managing the investment for you, and you get really good returns. So be careful when calling these funds with your U.S. tax person, because if you're really investing in a fund from the U.S. perspective that's not in the U.S., it's basically if you're buying stock in a company that owns a lot of other companies, like an investment company, that would be a fund from the United States. It's not taxed favorably, and it's much more complicated for filing. And it's definitely good to double check if what you have is really a fund, or if it's just like an investment with your bank. Because I just see this happen very often. If you're just investing in companies through your bank, they're not really funds. You're just investing in the companies. And the last thing that you need to know is that there's different ways to step up basis and appreciated assets. So if you have a lot of real estate that you've had for a long time and you plan on selling it soon, when you move to the U.S., if you sell that, you have to pay tax on the gain in the U.S. over the historical cost. There's different things we can do to basically increase the value of that property or of that investment to fair market value. And it's tricky. Again, it depends on the type of investment or the type of property and who owns it and how it's owned. But there's definitely things we can do. So reach out if you have anything like that for pre-immigration tax planning, because that's really what we're talking about. So the big takeaways from this short live stream that I think I'm making is that when you move to the U.S., you spend more than half a year here, there's a lot of caveats, but when you spend a lot of time in the U.S. and you become a resident, for tax purposes, you have to report your worldwide income. You have to pay tax on your worldwide income. If you own different companies, you have to report the activities of the companies, and there's a lot of pass-through taxation that could affect you. Also, The next thing is dividends that you receive from your Brazilian companies. Even though they're not taxable in Brazil, they could be taxable in the United States. Well, they are taxable in the United States. So that could be a huge hit if you're not prepared for that. So the last point is that double check if you really have funds, because if you tell your U.S. tax preparer that you have fondos, they're not necessarily funds from a U.S. perspective. So that's something to double check as well. So if you're considering moving to the U.S., or if you've already moved here and you haven't filed taxes yet, or it's really best to do pre-immigration tax planning before you move, because we have the most flexibility. But reach out to us if you have a business you want to immigrate to the U.S. I'm really happy to review your holdings, your Brazilian tax returns, see what you have, and see what we can do to mitigate the tax impact in the United States. Because oftentimes there's things we can do to set it up so that you're paying less worldwide taxes as a U.S. resident. I'm talking tax in Brazil and the U.S. So it's very complicated. I've done many of these pre-immigration tax plans for very wealthy Brazilian clients, and I'm confident that we can help you achieve similar results. So reach out if you have any questions. I'm at support@mbtaxconsultants.com. You can see it on the other videos. And I just hope this live stream was helpful and useful, and it was kind of fun to figure out what's going on. But I'll try and do more. Maybe I'll get some comments next time while I'm filming. I'm like 300 followers. So um, again, thanks for showing up, and let me know if you want to hear anything else. You have other questions. I'm happy to make more videos to answer more questions if I can. Thanks.